Good. All right. Ah, Good afternoon, everyone. Depending on where you are on on the planet, good afternoon, and welcome to the March edition of Insight Series by Hyber. Today, we are going to be talking about a very, very interesting topic, prototyping to profit. And we're going to focus on how you can turn customer insights into digital gold. And I have with me two very exciting guests, two very good friends of mine that have, taken out an hour from their extremely busy schedule to join us today. My name is Charles OJ. I am the Chief Executive Officer at Hyber Group. And with me today, I have Ms. Tiambi Sims, who is a product and venture builder and currently an advisory board member at the Heineken Africa Foundation. Tiambi, you want to say hi to the audience?
Hi, good afternoon or good morning to everyone.
Welcome,
Mm.
Tiambi. Secondly, I have someone I call the big brother,
Mm.
Mr. Francis Ibuehi, who has over 3 decades of experience in digital innovation and product development. He's currently the Chief Executive Officer at Tent Code. Francis, hi. Do you want to say hi to the audience?
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you are. Nice to be on this panel. Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Tiambi.
All right. Excellent. Welcome, Francis. Welcome, Tiambi. And I hope 2025 is looking good for us all in your different businesses. And I trust you're winning. How is 2025 going for you guys?
2025 has been pretty good so far. It's just, the life of an entrepreneur is never a dull moment. So, yeah, it's the peaks and valleys that comes with it.
Uh,
So, but overall it's good.
Good. And Francis, yourself?
Well, that's been very interesting. So many things happening globally and locally. And it's been interesting. Uncharted waters, not too different from last year, but what you find is that people are reducing but their budgets in
Hmm.
various ways, and it's primarily affecting contract work, consulting, and training. So there's so many things that we will need to take a second look at to actually see what will actually work in this climate. But we're still doing well. We're still doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very, very interesting year with different things happening at different parts of the world. And every time you open when you read the headlines, there's always something interesting always coming up. Last month, we did talk about five focus areas, innovation focus areas to future-proof your business. One of them was actually around the customer, and it's interesting you talk about, contracts being closed and what have you. And this month's edition and today's topic is taking that a little bit further as we look at prototyping, because in the very heart of prototyping is this engagement with the customer, right? And today we are going to be talking around these five elements. And I want to encourage the audience to at any point in time, if they find any of the slides interesting, maybe they have a question, feel free to post your question in the chat room. I will be looking at the chat box from time to time, and I'll be taking your questions and directing it to our lovely guests. But today's story is really around, why prototyping is important, what it is, how we can use it to convert customer insights. We'll talk a little bit about different types of prototypes to indicate how we can apply prototypes in different MVP, minimum viable product formats. And then we'll conclude by, how do we move from prototyping? How do we get to that place of profitability? Or in other words, how do we move towards scale? And like, how do you move after prototyping? What's next? And how do you continue to build that momentum? So really, it's a very interesting hour we're going to have, and I'm really excited to have both of you here. And I want to kick off with Tiambi. All right. And I want to, normally we start with the why. And as a venture builder, Tiambi, why is prototyping important?
So prototyping is important because it really validates whether you're on the right track or not. And I have utilized prototyping in both digital solutions as well as physical solutions, physical products, and utilizing the design thinking methodology, which I have been using in both physical and digital. And for me, it's really about understanding your customer and understanding their pain points. And so when you're prototyping, you are having that interaction with your users that is invaluable, the insights that you get from that. And so for like software solutions, using design thinking has helped me identify usability, I pain points, behavior, when the users are falling off the application or so forth. And then in physical products, I'm in livestock feed, and it's really about, do the animals like your food? Are they still they're gaining the weight that they're supposed to at certain milestones? So it's all about the iteration process that prototyping gives you. And it really just helps you with validating your assumptions, reducing your risk, reducing your costs, and aligning with your the real world solutions for your users.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you so much. And you just kind of like really summed up the whole webinar in a nutshell. And
Sorry.
and, and no. I mean, it's really it's really interesting how you highlight that engagement with the customer and really engagement with the audience or the stakeholders, to really try and see where that match is right before you move stuff to a higher level. And I wanted to even extend that conversation with a case study, of a very popular company where we know, even while we were growing up, we saw Xerox as the photocopier company. And this company in 1999, they wanted to move from a products and services company and, go into becoming a solutions provider. And that's a big business model shift. All right. So, 1992 to 1997 was really, years of great success. And to continue that success, they got this new CEO, April of 1999, and he came in and made some very interesting promises to the investor community and to the investor community and just a minute to the investor community and what need to mute someone. Good. And what actually happened was he went on with several initiatives. All right, one of which was to consolidate the vast amount of administration centers that they had, and also, he reorganized their entire sales force, moving them from a geographic focus to an industry focus. So someone might be, say, covering maybe East Africa, for example, and say, hey, no, don't cover East Africa no more. Focus on education or focus on banking. So that's a big shift. Now, these moves were important. All right, they were necessary because they wanted to maintain growth, and in this case, take it to the next level. However, he was moving at such incredible speed, and by the end of the year, Xerox was in chaos. All right, they had operational hiccups, they had cash flow issues, morale was kind of like really going low, and to cut it was the stock price plunged. It went down from $60 per share to $7 per share. All right, and by May, barely 12 months after the CEO was hired, he was fired. All right. So this is kind of like, a case where you want to do something new. You have a very, very big initiative or an idea or something you're really trying to go for. All right. It's important to basically see how you can, break it down and start small, right? So the CEO should have maybe tested each initiative at a time in small scale, in quote, which is what we call a prototype, to understand really, what actually works. And this brings us to this concept of, you go slow to eventually go fast, when you want to deliver big impact, um, some kind of high growth with a very high sense of urgency. It's, however, very important to, first of all, test your assumptions so that you know exactly what to do, who you're doing it for, and how best to do it. And I want to zone towards Francis. And Francis, from your own from your own experience, prototyping seems to be, sometimes a heavy lift, especially if one has a very hot idea, like in this case with Xerox. And even though they see a very big potential and possibilities, and they may have the resources to even deploy that idea, product, or initiative, does prototyping slow things down in the long run? Is it worth slowing things down in order to achieve this? From your experience in prototyping, what's your take?
Um, thanks, Charles. That's a very good question. And but first, let's clear this misconception. Prototyping isn't about slowing things down. It's
Mm-hmm.
about actually avoiding costly mistakes early. Okay.
Wow.
When you skip prototyping, you risk spending months and even years and significant resources building something you think the customers want, only to discover later that you've missed the mark completely on usability, desirability, and even market fit. So I want us to think of prototyping as speed with direction. Okay.
Mm,
Yes, it may feel like a pause at first, but it helps you validate assumptions, uncover blind spots, and sharpen your idea. In fact, I mean, teams that prototype smartly tend to pivot faster,
mm,
iterate better, and reduce expensive rework down the line. So just imagine imagine you are building a digital banking app. You're excited, you fund the full development immediately. Months later, after launch, customers complain that the onboarding flow is too complicated, and you start losing them. So redesigning at this stage means you've spent a lot of money, sunk costs, and delayed return on investment. However,
mm.
if you had prototyped the key journeys early, even with simple clickable wireframes, you could have spotted friction points and optimized before writing a single line of code. Let me bring this home. Let me bring this home in the real world. Let's take a look at some of the agri-tech startups in Nigeria over the past few years. I'm sure many of us would know what's been happening. Many
Mm-hmm.
of them with a hot idea. Yes, connecting smallholder farmers to investors via digital platforms, promising high returns as high as 50%, 60%. You understand? This idea sounded great on paper. The market opportunity was huge. They say Nigeria has a lot of huge arable farmlands, and you had farmers on the other side saying they didn't have money. So with all this, they sold this to the investors. And before you knew it, a lot of them had money in the bank. However, instead of taking time to prototype and deeply test these models with the farmers, the investors, and supply chains, they
Yeah.
went straight into full-scale product launches. And what
Mm-hmm.
happened? Uh, Several struggled, and some collapsed. Some that were saying that they're going to give 40%, 50%. They struggled to pay.
Yeah.
Okay, why? Because without proper typing, they missed the key realities.
Yeah.
Farmers had limited digital literacy. Supply chains were more fragile than assumed, and most of these guys did not understand the um,
The
planting season,
agriculture.
the culture, everything. Okay, and because they didn't do that, a lot of things went down. However, if they had actually focused on lightweight pilots or even early stage prototypes, even whether digital or operational, they would have built products based on assumptions instead of real. They build products based on assumptions instead of real insights on the ground. So, to
Yeah.
your question, does prototyping slow the business down? The short answer is might feel like yes, but the long-term answer is absolutely not. If some of these startups had invested time in prototyping simple versions, say onboarding, say 50 farmers, 10 investors to test flows and
Yeah.
expectations, they might have caught and fixed issues early before scaling to thousands and then crashing. So I would say, bottom line, short answer, yes, but the long-term answer is absolutely not. You have to prototype.
Thank you so much, Francis. In short, I'm just sitting here and, in hindsight, like really taking this in and really looking back at even, past situations, even with the example you have mentioned. I think prototyping really can eventually save the business. And we saw that with Xerox. It can really save the company and even get the company to where it wants to go to eventually faster.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I want to anchor on something you said. You said going fast, but in the right direction. And I want to even further talk about that with our next, case study. All right. This is a company, and people might look at the chart, how does a company go from zero in 2023 to a $20 million AAR, revenue in 2024. Like that looks like speed to me. But if you go to the background of the story, you realize that it's not Bolt, it's not the ride sharing company, it's not the popular Bolt ride sharing company. This is a different company called Starkblitz, all right, and they created a product eventually created a product called Bolt.new, and I'll talk about that a little. But in 2017, before COVID, they launched a code pen, all right, for full stack web developers. It was just a tool to help developers, build web applications better. And they kept, evolving it. And by 2022, they had grown their user base to about 2 million. Now, from the learnings, and you mentioned something, Francis, customer insights. From the customer insights they had unlocked during that journey, they built a new product called Bolt.new in 2024, as a AI native browser-based tool, this time for non-developers, all right? A tool that will enable non-developers, product managers, non-technical and entrepreneurs to build full stack applications without the traditional coding barriers. And this was a product that hit the market. They achieved a product market fit quite quickly. And when they launched the product, in 4 weeks, they had gotten $4 million of revenue. And in a couple of months, they had hit 20 million. So you might look at the chart and say, hey, it looks like from 2023 to 2024, very fast, but they were building for 7 years. They were actually building for 7 years. So it really brings that insight you put on the table. If you want to go fast in the right direction, you should prototype. Whether it is a physical product where you are making early samples, or whether it's a digital product, or even if it's a concept that represents a future product and service, all right, you want to be able to test, you want to be able to validate those ideas before you take them to full scale development. All right. And I want to come back to Tiambi in this development process, which is mainly anchored on the customer. And in your early remarks, Tiambi, you really talked about in your experience how you worked with the customers and really test and validated a couple of ideas. And as we look at the customer development process, it's a function of two things happening. You are searching, and you are executing eventually. And in the place of searching, you are conducting this customer discovery and you are validating. And then based on that validation, you change or you pivot. All right. And my question to you, Tiambi, is it does in many ways, prototyping drives customer development. How has this been for you
from your experience using prototypes to drive customer development processes?
So yes, thank you. For prototyping and custom development, I believe it's one of the parts that you are building trust with your potential customers, right? You're building a relationship with them. And this approach definitely helps with providing your users or customers with a feeling of ownership over the final product, right? Because they've been a part of the journey with you. And that's essential when it comes to them advocating and adopting your product. And also, it leads to a better retention. And essentially, they're going to be your first paying customers, more or less. So it really is about the relationship that you're building, the trust that you're building with them. And for me, for when I was working with digital products, that is really trying to understand the smallholder farmers. I'm in agriculture, and understanding their pain points, right? As well as in livestock feed now is ensuring that the farmers trust me. The farmers trust the feed that I'm creating and building for them. And so with that is a relationship that we're building, right? And we have to understand that business is a relationship, and either digital or physical, you're building relationship with people that are going to be buying your product or your service. And so having them along that process with you I think is essential, because you're getting insights from them that you normally wouldn't behind a computer or in the lab. You're not going to get those same insights from when you actually are speaking to them, and they are a part of your process.
Thanks a lot, Tiambi, and I want you to stay on a bit on this because we have a question from Francis in the audience, and he's saying that he understands the concept of prototyping, which I think he means why we need to prototype. His question, however, is what is prototyping and how can one go about it for a food hospitality and product business? And since you are the agricultural space is also food. I want to maybe use your example to answer his question. In your agribusiness, what would you classify as the prototype that you are using to validate your potential customers?
So feed, different feed scenarios. So the composition of the feed, right? So one feed can have X amount of maize or soya in it versus another one can have a different percentage of another ingredient, right? And then how are the animals adapting to it? The digestibility of it, their weight gain at different milestones, their water intake. So there's different ways you can have your animal trials for that. And for hospitality, that would be tastings, different tastings from the chef, right? If you're trying to revamp your menu, you're going to look at, okay, who are my customers, right? Because prototyping is really identifying who your customers are. Who are they and what do they like? Okay, so now I'm going to have a tasting for X amount of different food items and see what people like. And then from there, you are starting to build your menu and building it out for your customer group. Granted, everybody has a different palette, but you can get a consensus around what people like more or less. So there's different ways that you can use prototyping in that way in food and hospitality.
Wow. So it's almost like having small versions or variations of the product and trying it out within a sample customer base or customer set.
Yes, trial and error.
Wonderful.
That's
That's the word. Trial and
trial
error.
and error.
And learning very, very quickly from the process and learning very quickly what actually resonates with the customers. Oh, thank you so much. And of course, I think in doing this, there are a couple of benefits. And another example, this is a personal example of mine, was when I was working in a large company, and we wanted to penetrate a particular segment of the market, and we've been operating in urban areas for for over 15 years, and we were looking at going deeper into the geography, rural and semi-urban towns. Our business model, however, needed to change, and we wanted to, test out what would be the right business model. So, like you said, trial and error. We looked at a physical, version of that business model, which was creating like very small stocking centers inside of these villages. And then there were no apps. I mean, this was like really long time ago. There were no apps, and so we used SMS as a communication tool from a digital standpoint. And conceptually, what we were trying to do was, can we profitably serve retailers in these, villages or semi-urban towns directly? And in the spirit of trial and error, we just took two locations. We had our prototype of the stocking center. We recruited our first entrepreneur, and two of them, one in each location. And then we worked with them over 3 months, and we were trying out different types of things. We, of course, had a very clear success criteria in terms of what we were testing and the type of results we were eventually looking for. Fortunately, we broke even in both operations in 6 months. And then we said, okay, with everything we've learned, we readjusted the business model, and then we rolled out to 100 locations in 9 months. And eventually the business tripled in 3 years. So prototyping has its benefits when you do it right, when you really go on that journey of trial and error in the spirit of really trying to understand what works for the customers. And there are a couple of benefits that prototyping brings to the table. But I want to ask each of you, from your experience, what is your favorite benefit that you've seen? What benefit really resonates with you? And I want to start with Francis. What is your favorite benefit when it comes to prototyping from your experience? Which of these six really resonates with you?
Money, money, money. You talk about the Benjamins, and to be frank with you, I will put here, out of these six that you've put out there, I'll say save money and time.
Yeah.
Saving money and time. However, I need to put a bit of caveat. What you will find is that, you see, when some of the startups have loads of cash being thrown at them, they tend to forget this aspect, which is the part of the saving money. They just throw cash at so many things. But those ones that have lean purses, they actually consider this very, very critical. They don't have loads of cash. They just have lean purses. So they need to actually use the least resources that they have and actually do it as quick as possible so as to actually get out the MVP. So for me, it's about saving money and time, because when you prototype, you're catching mistakes early and before they become expensive problems. You will find out that for me, it saves you a lot of hassles. Okay, I've worked on projects where teams skipped prototyping because they're confident on the idea and had the resources to build quickly. But fast forward a couple of months, they realized that they had to rework major parts of the product. I mean, you delay launch dates, and it's like, take for instance, you want to build. Let me go to the physical. You want to build a 20-story building. Before, for the foundation, the concrete that I use for foundation, they do what we call. I'm a civil engineer by education. We do what we call testing. You take a sample of the concrete and you test it, because you don't want to get to a point where you use just any kind of concrete and you find out that you get to the 5th floor and you start seeing cracks. Okay, it saves you a lot of time when you do prototyping, because those small samples are like prototyping. Okay. Now take it to the digital world. It's always good to have a small group of people come together. And
Mm.
interesting, the agile product development that in a way has helped to manage this issue, where at every point in time that you go to you introduce new feature, you have the customers involved in taking the decisions. That really, really saves you money and time. And that helps the team to align early enough such that they are aware of what's happening and they're all on the same page. You avoid the confusion, you avoid the miscommunication that could lead to delays later. So for me, prototyping is one of the smartest financial decisions you can make in product development. It's not a detour, it's a shortcut to building the right thing faster and with fewer surprises.
Wow. I can really testify on saving money and time, and especially now that money seems to be drying up on the investment side, and
Yeah.
customers are struggling with costs. So Sims prototyping might be the route to for better customer penetration and eventual traction in the business. Tiami, what about you now? So Francis has ticked off saving money and time, and not that all these other benefits are not important, but which other benefit from your experience really resonates with you?
I would say fosters innovation. And so
Hmm.
because of the continuous
Good
reiteration
afternoon,
of the
Pamela. How are you
feedback
doing?
from your users, I think that right there is, for me, is essential, especially with
Well,
coming from a design thinking
I'll
background.
just go straight to
Someone is
it.
on the. Can we
But
mute?
since I have much
Jed, can you mute
information
Don
just
Tutu,
before we
please?
begin the session, if you could just
Yeah.
Go on, Tiami.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, for me, it's really on the fostering of innovation, because when you are collaborating with your users, you are getting insights from them because essentially they have the problem and you don't, right? Or unless you're solving your own problem, but majority of the time you're solving an external problem. And so you don't have that problem. So you're not really in the muck of it, as they say. So you're not going to understand all the different nuances. So when you're working and prototyping with the users that have the problem, you are learning. And then it's also providing you with additional ways of how to solve that problem for them. For instance, I was working with cocoa farmers in Ghana, and a lot of majority of them had low literacy levels. And we were trying to make a bookkeeping system for them, and we realized they understand numbers. So we did everything in numbers, icons. We made booklets for them to understand it, right? Because we had to get them to the next phase. And how do you do that with people who have low literacy, right? So that process has taught me and my team at the time how to create a new solution, right, around this, and to make sure that our end users are able to fully understand the product that we're trying to build for them and solve their issue, because they're telling us their issue. And so we're trying to help them get there and fix it for them. So it's that constant feedback. And so and with that constant feedback, you're innovating at the same time. So for me, that's one of the key benefits of this, of
we we
prototyping.
we 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 have a we have a very interesting audience here, and the questions are already coming in,
Okay.
and to extend what you just said, especially in fostering innovation and engaging your customers early with some of with the prototypes. One of our someone from the audience is asking, won't prototyping give the competition insight on the direction you are going with in the business or that particular product? So that risk of bringing things out early and the competition getting a hang of it, is that an issue, or what do you think?
No, no. And I say this because nothing is really novel, anymore, right? And so it's all about the execution. So yes,
Hmm.
they may get a little bit of a glimpse of what you're doing, but how you execute, that's going to be able to differentiate between you and your competitor. So no, it's not an issue. Unless whoever gets to market first and has a better product.
Exactly.
It's really about execution. It's not about, oh, they see my prototype. Okay. Nothing is really novel these days. Yeah. And because that is a big hang up on a lot of entrepreneurs. Oh, I don't want to tell people. Oh, no, you have to.
Yeah,
How are you going
yeah.
to get feedback? How are you going to
That's
stay
it.
on the right track if you're
That's
not
it.
talking to people?
That's it.
So yeah,
Absolutely. You wanna get the feedback because the feedback is the real gold. The insights from
exactly.
the customer is the real gold that is gonna make the product something that they love. And then you use execution to beat your competition. I mean, I really love the way you answer that question and just lay because there's always this concern. People are gonna get a hang of what I'm doing and they're gonna, steal my idea. They're gonna, well, if you execute very well, those insights that you are constantly, and it's not a one-off thing, right? You continue to get
Exactly.
those insights from customers and continue to improve your product, and then you continue to execute. And on that spirit of customer
Sorry,
insights, I want to,
Charles,
Francis,
sorry. Yeah. Let me lend some insights
please.
to what you just said. Now, when I was in the telco business, I was head of one of the telco mobile telcos in Nigeria, about four of us. Now, I see where Francis Enakele's question is coming from. And what you had was that at that time, there were two main vendors in the business at that time. I think so, yeah, two. Ericsson and Huawei. And they maintained the core of the business. So what for all of us. So what it meant was that whenever you're trying any particular new feature you want to roll out, new product, you have one of their engineers coming to sit with you to actually try out these things on a sample group of people. And you're now scared that that same engineer will now go to the other telco to do the same thing. So to be frank with you, we yeah, even though we say that the difference is in the service and the execution, what you found out, if you were not careful, I remember one of the products, what we launched it the next day, one of the competitors just changed the colors of our advert and just pushed it out to say yes, they already had it. Did you understand? But
Wow.
when you go there to meet them, they'll say coming soon. But they didn't say that. You understand? They didn't say that in the message out there. So you find out that yes, there may be that temptation to say that it gives competition insight. And even as a product manager, when you come up with a product roadmap, and that roadmap is available to some of the people in your organization, this also comes up. So what we
I
did
can hear you now.
was,
I think I
yeah,
suspect it's my network. Oh, can you hear me
hello,
Yeah.
now?
Can we,
Don,
Don, can you mute, please? Jed, can you
When did
mute
you
Don?
stop hearing
It keeps
so
coming up.
so
Go
yeah,
on.
so what we did was more or less code some of these features. It was like secret projects. Few people, but even you even get when you get to get people's feedback, you actually bring a group of people that they did not even know about what they were going to test. Do you understand? And it was like something novel, and they'll just go through it. At the end of the day, we get their insights, and boom, we go with it. Now we had to do this over a couple of times, but it's really in some sectors where you find out that competition might get an insight. However, it's based on the way you do it And two, the difference should be on this execution and the service along with the product. I just said
Wow,
I
I
should
think
just
yeah, and I think even with that feedback, you've even you've even taken a step further to summarize this slide. And two key things I've taken from what you just said is yes, the competitor might see what you're doing, all right, and try to copy it. But because you have properly analyzed and identified the key elements of that aspect of your product that you have developed based on the insight from the customer as a result of engaging with your prototype. So you know what you have built and you know how what you have built is going to work. The second thing that you said is really around execution, which speaks to acting on the insights very quickly, like executing, executing in the market, executing, and even from that execution, learning from it as well, and then even further refining the product. So you're in this execution flywheel that just keeps you a step ahead of the competition. Is there anything else on converting customer insights into prototypes that you also want to highlight, Francis?
I think maybe I actually said a lot, even without looking at this. But the thing is that you've rightly said, insights are often like raw data. They tell you the pain points. They give you so much information such that you actually know whether you're going in the right direction or in the wrong direction. You understand? You get some. Take for instance, okay, give an example. You go to some sites. I once went to a banking site, and for long, when you go to some sites, you see the hamburger on the top, or you either see the hamburger at the top right or on the top left. Okay? Now, on getting to this big bank site, they had it full of pictures I did not know how to navigate. I was lost. Come on. I just want to open an account or do something. I couldn't find the form.
Wow.
You understand? It was incredulous, but that is what happened in one of the things. So I'm asking myself, did these guys actually pitch this before some customers?
Yeah.
Obviously, or maybe I'm not their typical customer, but hey, wait a minute. I am their typical customer. Okay? And I had to, and when I did a training from their product managers, and I gave them this feedback. I said, come on, sorry. When I get to your website, I am lost. And even when I got to where to download an account opening form, guess what? I just couldn't find it. I had to call them, and they now told me, come to the branch.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
You can imagine this is
not efficient at all.
yeah. I mean, so you can imagine that.
Why do we have a website in the first place?
Thank you. Do you understand? Why do you have a website? You understand? So you see, these people really did not push this thing before their customers. They just went ahead with that. And I told them that is a major pain point for me.
Yeah.
You understand? One of the things I hate doing is going to a branch, a physical branch. I want to be able to do everything at my desk, in my office. The moment I start doing that, and you see, the thing is that most of them preach agile development. They're agile, they are this, they are that. I'm like, sorry, this is not what you understand. So it's very important that we get customer insights. And when we get that insight, as you said rightly, act on these insights quickly. Yeah. Because you need to actually I'm a kind of customer that, I mean, if I wasn't training people on products and I wasn't taking that particular bank, I wouldn't have given them, purposely wouldn't have given them that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? And I would have gently reduced my transactions with that bank and moved on. And they would have lost my money. Do you
Yep.
understand?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
very, very important. These things are important. I mean, when you have insights, you actually use them. You use them to actually make your product better. Tiami talked about innovation. I love innovation, but use that information to actually listen to the customer and make the right changes at the right time. So I think that customer insights are very, very important to prototyping. Thanks.
And this really is the whole essence of prototyping. You want to quickly and early get the insights from the customers, adapt or apply it into your product, and then execute it very, very quickly and learn from that process even more. All right. And we're now going towards the end of the webinar. I'm really enjoying this session. So now we want to even now start going into the house and the different types of prototypes that our audience can apply as they get customer insights and execute very, very quickly. And there are a few of them, and I'll quickly run through them and also get our thoughts on them. The first one, and there's so many types of prototypes, by the way. The list we're going to give here is not an exhaustive list. It's not 100% list. These are just some examples that we are highlighting, especially from our experience in building prototypes. So one is, and this is coined by a very wonderful guy called Matthew Boreas, Wizard of Oz MVP, right? This one is a seamlessly functional solution where operations are manually done behind the scenes. A lot of times, especially when we're building digital products, we just want to dive in. Oh, let's create an app. Sometimes that's not always the best approach. All right. What are you trying to automate? Can you start from a manual standpoint, do it manually first, test how it works, and then from that insight, and when you are at the point where you are seeing exactly how everything flows, then you now begin to automate. And from our experience, in one of our clients who was trying to automate a collection and incentive process with their vendors, we started out just using manual forms. Just use manual forms and just go from point to point, collecting the data and understanding how the interaction really, really happens. So you want to understand, you want to test demand, you want to understand customer behavior before you then start spending money on, developing or automating a full digital product. The second one, and I'll turn to Tiambi, is this concierge MVP, which is very hands-on, personalized service, simulating a manual, simulating the product manually. So an example also, again, for one of our clients is they wanted to test payments. So we created a manual currency that we were using to kind of test with the vendors, all right? And we wanted to validate whether the users found some value in the solution. But Tiami, do you have another example of this type of MVP from your own experience?
Yes. So when I was working with Market Women here in Lagos, how we did it was we were at Mile 12, Aja, we was in multiple markets, and we would call them before, get their what their orders were, talk to them when we got there, and then they will also send us information via WhatsApp. And so that helped us being able to understand what their buying power was, their buying patterns, and knew when we needed to be there, so that we were already anticipating what they needed from us, and so that provided us with insights immediately on, oh no, we shouldn't be coming at this time. We need to extend payments for another week or so because we see their pattern and how fast they turn over, right? And so that right there, it's invaluable information that you just can't get anywhere else. and they're telling you what they need, right?
Mm.
And so again, if you are building a product that is human-centered around your audience, about your customer, then you really need to be listening to them. And so these different types of prototyping, and even I also had done the Wizard of Oz one, the one before,
Mm-hmm.
also with booklets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know who your customer is, right? You need to know what's their literacy level, either on paper or digital, right? How do they interact in the world on a day-to-day? And because you want your product to seamlessly fit into their lives, right? If I have to do anything extra, I'm turned off. And
Mm-hmm.
like what Francis was saying about the banking app, if I'm on a website and I cannot find something immediately and it's not in the right flow, I'm already losing interest and I'm going somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
That's how quickly I am, because I know how product flows and I know
Yeah.
what is supposed to be a seamless product. Right. And so when you understand the flow of your product, your UX and everything, you want it to be as simple as possible. You want to have little click views as possible, because you want your customer to get to the end result. And what is that? Either making a payment, receiving a payment, whatever the goal of that product is, you want them to get there as seamlessly as possible. And you cannot really get that information if you're not really talking to your customer that is
Yeah.
actually going through that process on a regular basis. And one of the reasons we use WhatsApp at the very beginning stages is because everybody was using WhatsApp, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, how do you make it as seamless as possible, right? We do not want to have somebody download something else and do this. No, how
Mm-hmm.
do we make this easily in their lives,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Wonderful.
really on adapting to your customers' needs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful. The third example here is something we call the pre-order MVP, especially for people that are building something that is a physical product. So you allow your customers reorder the product, maybe through a landing page or a crowdfunding campaign, and this is sometimes before the product is even built. So maybe you have a prototype or you've made some product samples, and then before you go all out into full blown production, you want to first of all kind of like test the demand, right? Are people willing to pay for this solution? All right, so you kind of run a pre-order process where people can pre-order these things, and then that gives you an indication that um, this can actually work. The next one is, well, prototype MVP. So this one, yes, the word prototype is there, but in this case, it's really a basic, tangible version of that product that you want to take to the market. All right. So if it's a digital product, you are making like your first version of that product. It wouldn't have all the features that you're dreaming of having. It will just have the basic ones. One interesting use case for this is instead of going out on a full blown build, you could use like no code platforms to very quickly build a web-based prototype. All right. Instead of building an app and put it on the app store, you can build a web-based prototype at a fraction of the development cost, and then use that MVP or prototype to engage with your customers. And I'm sure Francis, probably you have a lot of experience on this one. What are your thoughts on this type of approach when it comes to prototype?
Hello? Sorry, sorry.
Yes, Francis, you on mute.
Sorry, there was a glitch. Sorry. Could you run that by me again? Sorry.
So I was saying that for the prototype MVP format, where you are building a very small, tangible version of the actual product. So in this case, maybe for example, instead of getting a developer and building an app and putting it on the app store and then getting your users to go in and download the app, maybe you're just using a no-code platform to build a web-based digital product, which is coming at a fraction of the cost with very minimal features that you then want to, engage with your customers and test. So, do you have any additional thoughts around this type of format from your own experience in building MVPs?
I would say not really, because most of I've not been in a situation where I've had to use this kind of MVP, because most of there was not much in terms of cost between just the basic, the way technology has actually made everything simpler. There's really no difference between a basic and the quote unquote working version of the product.
Of the product,
okay?
Yes.
Yeah, the basic and the working version of the product. Where I mean, you don't have to code too much right now to get
Yes.
up. Yeah, so I wouldn't say I've actually encountered much of this in what I do right now.
All right. Great.
Yeah.
So just moving forward, as we wrap up the call, we have a few minutes to go. And another type of way to prototype is, especially for concepts, for programs, is using explainer videos. I remember a situation where we wanted to, build a product for a for a government client. And we wanted them to have a look and feel of the product. All right. So even before we built it, we just took a couple of designs and we kind of simulated an explainer video to showcase the user journey and the features of the product. And it really kind of really opened up the mind of the client in terms of what they were, getting into. Another example for even a basic training program that we were trying to run, and we wanted people to apply for this program. We did a simple explainer video that walked them through what the program was about, the features and the benefits of the program, and then gave them the opportunity to sign up digitally. So explainer videos help you visualize what you are trying to do for the customer in a very logical way, and it can help you stimulate interest and engagement as well. And then finally, in terms of formats, is the very popular one called pilots. So pilot is you want to run run the product or the program as an experiment, but with a very small group of early adopters. My example I gave in terms of taking a business model into a rural area is a very classic example of a pilot. But I want to ask Thiambi, as we wrap up, what do you think from your experience can really help make pilots stand out and succeed, looking at this type of format?
Yeah, so I would say for pilots, I think there's a couple of things that needs to be in place. One of the main things is goal setting. How defining success, right? What are your KPIs? What are you looking for? What is going to be a failed pilot? So once you have that, I think then you start streamlining everything down. So it would then be your systems and your routines. So for digital products or even for physical products, I use, Jira and Trello. For digital products, I use ClickUp as my overall task management and project management software solutions that I use for me and my team. So I have a nice overview. And then within that is my milestones, and tracking, right? A pilot is time-based, right? So there's a start and an date. It's not indefinite. And so when you have clear objectives of what you want to do, you should have milestones within that, and then you should be able to track that. Again, that goes into your systems and your routines. I would say the next one would be getting buy-in from your decision makers and your stakeholders. Now, if you're a product developer or product manager and you need funds, budget, resources, you have to get your buy-in. And now if you're an entrepreneur, you still need to get your buy-in from your investors or the stakeholders as well. So you need that buy-in for getting early adopters. You need your beta testers. This is where the prototype comes in.
Yeah.
And lastly would be budgeting and resources. And again, that goes into, depending on where you are in your organization, that goes back to your decision makers, right? You need to ensure that you have sufficient funds and the infrastructure to be able to do your pilot. So when you have that, and also like a pilot checklist of all the things that you need to do, is I don't think people should go, or organizations should go into a pilot haphazardly, right? Oh, I'm just gonna have a pilot. No, that's gonna just waste time, money, and everything else. So there should definitely be a plan for what the pilot is supposed to do. What is the outcome, the desired outcome? And if not, why? What happened? Because a failed pilot is not really a failure, right? Because there are learnings within that pilot. You may not get the outcome that you wanted, but you still got some level of outcome, right? And then now it's time to go back to the drawing board and pivot, yes or no. So having a framework in mind is definitely important when having a pilot. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tiambi. And that brings us to our final slide, where we want to offer our audience a roadmap um, for helping them, get from their prototype to a place of growth and eventually, profitability. And these are eight steps that you can follow. Like Tiambi said, you want to really clarify on your success criteria. You want to know exactly, what do I want to achieve with this prototype. You want to be able to avoid feature creep and over engineering the prototype. I would love Francis to just say one or two things about over engineering your prototype, because sometimes people want to put everything in versus just having the basics that they just really, really need to test. Francis, do you have a word or two on feature creep?
Yeah, yes, feature creep, the classic trap, especially during prototyping and MVP stages. You see, it's when you start with a simple, focused idea, but along the way, you or the team keeps adding just one more feature and another. And you also experience it when you are doing agile. You have the MD wants something, the CFO wants something, everybody wants something, and you have to decide what to do. And before you know it, your prototype has ballooned into something complex, expensive. You understand? The danger is that it dilutes the core value you are trying to deliver to your users. Instead of focusing on solving just one simple, specific problem brilliantly, you end up with a bloated product that tries to do too much and often does none of it well.
Yes.
So, you see, it comes, in my experience, it comes from two places. One, excitement about possibilities and fear of missing out, FOMO, on what competitors might be doing.
Yes.
But here's the reality. Most successful products start by nailing one or two things that their users truly care about.
Yes.
You start with that, then you expand later. Okay? So during prototyping, your job is to validate the core hypothesis. If that core doesn't work, no amount of extra features will save that product. Yes. Keep it lean, keep it focused, and let the feedback from users guide what to add next. So simple, and it's always good. Just, sometimes you have people that just do not know when to stop. You just want to keep adding and adding. Just focus on what's one core problem, and you will get over this. Okay, you don't have to be like everybody.
Absolutely. And you just mentioned focus on one or two core things and test very quickly, get the
Yes.
insights, and move on the ladder. Yes. And the fourth one is, as you're testing, you're also tracking the results, right? And Tiambi, I know you to be a specialist in terms of tracking. What gold mines can you give our audience in this very important area of the prototyping journey in terms of tracking and
Yeah,
communicating the results?
so I think I would go back to what I was saying before when you have your systems and your routines in place. That would also show where your milestones are, right?
Good.
And then within your milestones, you are also saying who needs to know that this milestone was achieved, right? And
Yes.
so when you're breaking it down from there, then you are able to communicate, okay, we hit this milestone at X time with whatever your matrix are. And so, and how you communicate that depends on your structure of your organization, but it should be to your decision makers. Hey, we hit this at such and such time. And that gives confidence back into your decision makers. It also gives confidence within your team that you are on the right track when you are hitting your milestones. And either the milestones, again, could be a positive or a negative, but then there's also learnings within those milestones that you can take to get to your next milestone. And I think consistent communication, you don't need to over communicate, right? But a consistent rhythm of communication is good for your decision makers and the stakeholders at large.
Exactly.
Right? Because they want to know if you're an entrepreneur, your investors want to know what you're doing. What progress have you made? Are you doing a follow-up email? Are you doing a blurb? How do we know you're moving in that right direction? If you're a product manager, how do we know this feature is coming out at X time that you said it would? And so it's just really knowing your base, knowing the decision makers and what is needed. And that goes back to what is your objective of the pilot, right? What are the goals for the pilot? So they also go back into that because there is all interlinked with each other.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
really on what is the goals, and how you break that down determines your tracking and your communication with your team.
Absolutely. And communicating and engaging. I really like what you said in terms of engaging your decision makers in a timely fashion, whether it's once a month, whether it's, depending on the length of the pilot, whether it's at the end of the week. That is very important. And as you move on in tracking and reporting, you're also looking at the unit economics of the value that prototype is generating, especially if you are selling or getting the customers to adopt that product. And once your prototype is taking shape, you're gathering the insights, and you're completing that engagement, insight generation from the client. You must think very well about how you plan to take that prototype beyond the prototype stage, or take that product beyond the prototype stage. So here we start looking at things like go to market. How do you want to go to market? And this speaks a lot to the execution in the marketplace. But as you execute, also try and break it down into phases. So when I talked about, the example of piloting in rural, where we just started with in two places, and then we moved, we rolled out to that 100 in steps, and then from 100 we went to 200. So you want to be able to phase your expansion in a way that you can continue to learn. And this brings us to the end of the webinar. But I want to ask for some final thoughts from our wonderful guests that have been so insightful today within the hour. And let me start with Francis. Francis, do you have any final thoughts as it relates to prototyping and even following these steps?
All I can say is, first of all, prototyping is essential. It is not something you should avoid. You get to learn a lot. When you prototype, you get customer insights, and it helps you to make a better product. at the end of the day. I remember there's a brilliant example about some scientists and people coming together to make the best dog biscuit. They put all the vitamins and all the all the necessary things to make the dog very lean and nice and everything. And they did all that. After so many days, they brought it in front of the dog, the customer. The dog just smelt it and just said, I left. You understand? You understand? Because they
Yes.
did not involve the dog. They only wanted what was best for them, but they did not involve the dog. So, as what they should have done would have just tested different things, different portions of different vitamins and different ingredients, present to the dog, and based on the learnings, actually get what is best for the dog.
Exactly.
And that would have been the best dog biscuit that would have rivaled any other. So please test, learn, and then build your digital gold.
I really love the way you illustrate your examples, Francis. I really love it. All right. Thank you so much, Francis. Tiambi, any final words?
Not so much because Francis really touched upon everything. But I would just say is really learn your customer, and having that open communication with them because you are building trust and your customers want to trust you. They want to know that you are solving their problem. And so when you have that type of mindset, you are working with them, you're working together to build the product. And so prototyping is essential. You need it, and you need to have a plan to bring it to market or a plan to pilot it with a small group of people that are going to be your adopters, your early adopters, as well as your first customers. And so their insights are very valuable. So I wouldn't skip it. It's going fast, but in the right direction, and that's the way you need to go. So.
Thank you so much, Tiambi. Thank you so much, Francis, for spending time with us, both of you, and with all the wonderful insights that you've given us during the hour. For our audience, we have come to the end of the session. Thank you for your questions. We were able to answer them. If you need help prototyping or if you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to us either through our website or with the email address there. We are interested in solving big problems, and the world needs innovation leaders like you, and you need innovators like us, or problem solvers like us to solve these challenges. Again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Tiambi. Thank you so much, Francis. I want to wish everyone a wonderful evening as we come to an end of this wonderful webinar. Thanks so much, everyone, and do have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.